Shubhra Maheshwari, our treasurer, would present flowers to our chairperson, Ms. Samia Alam Khan.
Dear past chairpersons, governing board members, our guest of honor, Ms.Vinita Bali, and my dear fellow members. As I begin my journey as chairperson of YFLO, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to another year of learning and growing together. Thank you for being here. I would like to once again thank the outgoing teams of YFLO for the wonderful work done. I have promised you that our programs for the year will be focused on maximum learning, interactive leadership lessons and skill development with experts, thought leaders, and achievers. Today is just the beginning in this journey of learning, life and leadership lessons from the best possible in the country. When Ms. Bali agreed to come to Hyderabad to address YFLO, not only was I excited and happy, but also felt very humbled. Ma'am, thank you very much for agreeing to address us today, in spite of your extremely busy schedule. Ladies, it is my honor to introduce our esteemed speaker, Ms.Vinita Bali, one of the most successful, influential, dynamic, and globally acclaimed leader. Ms. Bali has led many large companies to metamorphic success, including global giants like Coca-Cola, Cadbury Schweppes, and Britannia Industries in a variety of management roles. She's a visionary who has risen from management positions to the boardroom of various organizations. She's known to be gentle, sensitive, and a thought-provoking leader that many women would love to emulate. I know I would definitely like to. At Britannia, Ms. Bali brought new focus and direction to the company with a clear strategic vision propelled by research and innovation towards better health and nutrition, pioneering the initiative towards eradication of malnutrition in India. Thanks to her, Britannia's work in this area is recognized globally. Ms. Bali was invited to lead the Scaling Up Nutrition Sun initiative of the United Nations to help improve maternal and child health. What an honor that is for the country too. Given her struggle and rise to be among the top echelons, it was most apt for us to request her to guide us on leadership lessons in both boardroom and life. Before I close, I would like to share that nationally, our organization had started the We initiatives focusing on skill development. Hyderabad has taken up We in transport, wherein women are trained as.
So it's great to be here. Thank you very much, Samia, for giving me the opportunity to spend at least the next hour or so with all of you. When Samia first called me up and said that she had just taken over as the chairperson and this is what the event was, it took me no time to say yes to her. Primarily because I do believe that I think the time has come for women to actually do what they want to do. And if you choose to have a career, you must have all the opportunities to have a career. And if you choose to not have a career, that also is fine.
Not just to our immediate families, but also to communities and societies. That is why we are here. And any contribution that we make is a significant contribution. So one of the first things I want to say is it's not about becoming the CEO of a company. CEO is only a title. It is what you do when you are the CEO of a company that matters. And it also matters less that you don't have a title and you still end up doing some great work. It's someone that not just India but the world recognizes. And he was a man who had no title. He was a man who was not awarded anything during his lifetime or posthumously, and yet he is considered to be the greatest leader of all modern times. A lot of times people ask me, when I planned my career, and my honest answer is no. I made choices, sometimes very unconventional choices, but I did what I wanted to do. So yes, I finished my studies, I did an MBA, I got into a job, but I made some very unconventional choices in my job. I decided to go and work in Nigeria with Cadbury's. This was in 1992, when nobody, not even a man, would have thought of going and working in Nigeria. Primarily because I thought it was a great adventure and it was a good opportunity to learn. I was supposed to come back from Nigeria to India and take over as head of Cadbury's, and this was way back in 1993. And I chose instead to go and work with Cadbury's in South Africa, because Cadbury's asked me when I was in Nigeria that India is always there, but South Africa has just opened up. Nelson Mandela had just been released from prison. They were talking about creating the new South Africa. And I remember asking Cadbury's, how do I fit? I'm neither black nor white. And they said, well, that's exactly why you fit. We want neither someone who's black nor someone who's white. And
I decided I could have come back as CEO of Cadbury in India in 1993. I chose instead to go and work as sales and marketing director in Cadbury South Africa. Cadbury South Africa was a very large business for Cadbury, but that wasn't my reason for doing that. My reason was to go and live in another country, to prove to myself and to everybody else that, Indians are as good as global managers. South Africa was new to the whole world, not just to people in India. It was a fabulous opportunity. It was also a high-risk opportunity because what did I know about South Africa? And I was there as in a sales and marketing role. So the point I want to make is that the first thing is all of us have to believe in ourselves. We are all here because we've got talent, we've got competency. And if together with that talent and competency, you have a great attitude, which is to say that I'm doing it because I want to. And I'm going to work hard at what I'm doing to create whatever degree of success is possible. Then you begin to find that, things actually become quite simple and quite easy. A lot of the times we put a lot of expectation on ourselves and, we don't want to fail. And which is also very quizzical for me because, when you think of life outside the corporate world, the greatest of the greatest fail. Roger Federer doesn't win every match he plays. Sachin Tendulkar never goes and hits a century every time he goes and plays in a match. He's out for a duck and then he hits a double century. But somehow in the corporate world, it is expected that whatever you do, you're going to succeed. And I think that puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on us. You're all entrepreneurs. I can tell you, I've not been an entrepreneur like that, but I've been very entrepreneurial in my professional career. We've launched a lot of products. A lot of them have succeeded. A lot of them have failed. But does that mean that we don't know how to launch products? Not at all. So the first point I said is that you've got to believe in yourself. The second thing I want to say to you is, you've got to be very clear what you enjoy doing. Don't do something because someone else is doing it. Do something because you want to do it. And once you sort of free yourself of all kinds of, of all those kinds of expectations, then you'll find that it's great fun to put things together. All of you will start small. Some of you will grow up to have very big businesses. Some of you will grow up to have moderate businesses. Some of you will grow up to have small businesses. It doesn't matter. Every company in the world is not a big company. There are companies that are small and very nimble and very, very good at what they do. Similarly, there are entrepreneurs who might not be very big, but you might be excellent at what you do. So the important thing is judge success on your terms, not on somebody else's terms. Because what looks like success to you may or may not look like success to someone else. The problem with living up to someone else's expectations is you don't know what their expectations are going to be. And why should any of us live up to someone else's expectations? The most important person in our life is us. Everybody else comes later. Your children, your husband, everybody comes later. And I think one of the problems I think a lot of women have is we're thinking about everybody else before we think of ourselves. And I'm certainly not saying that you don't think of anybody else. I think we all have responsibilities, and we have to deal with those responsibilities in a manner which is responsible. But we also have a responsibility to ourselves. You have to create for yourself whatever you desire to create for yourself. And if you're okay with saying that I really don't want to have a business, I don't want to have a career, I'm just going to look after my kids and travel and enjoy the world, that is also fine. There is no guilt associated with any choice that you make. But once you make a choice, you have to be responsible. Once you become an entrepreneur, you're responsible not just to yourself, but also to the people that you will employ. You're responsible not just to yourself, but also to the banks that will put money based on your credibility. You're responsible not just to yourself, but also to your consumers and your customers who are very important for your business to succeed. So I think the important thing really is to get clear on what you want to do and to define success in your terms. Will you have doubts? Of course you will have doubts. If things were fairly straightforward and clear and the path was very clear, it would be easy for all of us. But the path is not always clear. As somebody said, that when you focus on the obstacles, you never see the goal. But once you focus on the goal, you will take care of the obstacles that come in your way. So again, it depends on what your attitude is and where you're starting from. If you say that, oh my God, it's so difficult to do business in this country because you don't get this and you don't get that and everything is corrupt and so on and so forth, frankly, you won't get anywhere. The other attitude is to say, you know what, it's not easy, but so many people before me have done it and so many people after me will do it. So let me give it my best shot. And I can tell you with great confidence and great certainty that no matter what anybody says about India, sometimes it takes us longer, sometimes it is very arduous, sometimes it is very bureaucratic, sometimes it just is very, irritating, but it is possible to do what you want to do here. And you just have to be focused, you have to be clear, and you have to set your own, rules in terms of how you want to work. So it's about, again, I come back to conviction. It is about being smart about what you want to do. That's another thing. There are a lot of people who say, I'm really passionate about this. Well, passion is good to start with. But passion without competence doesn't get you anywhere. If you are passionate, then either you have to be competent or you have to go and find people who are competent. So it is both about being passionate about what you want to do and having the competence to do it. So competence without passion will only get you so far. Passion without competence will not get you very far at all. So remember another thing, that when you are the entrepreneur, when you are the founder, when you are the promoter, whatever you want to call yourself, you also need to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. In fact, if you look at great corporations that have been successful over hundreds of years, One of the things that great corporations always do, or great leaders always do, is they surround themselves with other people who are smarter than them, who are more competent than them. Because none of us can do everything. Not even Prime Minister Modi can do everything on his own, as we have seen. You might believe that you're the best person to do this job, but we can't. There are too many variables in the environment that need to be managed, irrespective of the size of your operation or of your business. So therefore, the second thing that all successful entrepreneurs have experienced is you have a vision, you have a dream, you have to have the ability to be able to take that vision and dream and craft it into small steps that you will take to realize that vision and dream. Nobody can go from there to there without taking some small steps in between. You'll have to take some steps sideways as well, because things you expect will happen don't happen. When you expect things to happen in a particular way, they don't necessarily happen in that particular way. But if you're focused on the goal, you will take care of the obstacles. So successful people are those people who also surround themselves with, with competency. I think the other part of success is the attitude you have, which I spoke about earlier as well. It's not just about your attitude, because your attitude will also create the attitude of those people who work for you. I always used to say that, if we've decided to do something and if the results are different from what we've done, we have to be able to very candidly say, what is it that we could have done to change the outcome? So the focus is not on your effort. The focus is not on how hard you've worked. The focus really is, are you working hard on the right things? Are you spending your time on those things that will make the big difference? So hard work is important, but hard work which is directed and focused in the right direction is what will produce results. So there are a lot of people, you meet who say that I worked really hard and nothing happened. Sometimes that's also true. Sometimes you might have an idea that is ahead of its time. Sometimes you might have an idea, but someone else comes up with the same idea and is able to execute it better than you can execute it. So in business, one of the other things that I've learned is that it is good to have clarity, it is good to have a goal, it is good to have a strategy, but all of that without having a really good ability to execute. And by execute, I mean, who is going to do what? What is the process we are going to follow? How do we go from where we are to where we want to be? Those are the matters of execution. So you can have a great plan, great thoughts, wonderful passion, all of those things. But if in execution you're not paying enough attention to detail, things can go terribly, terribly wrong. And at the end of the day, it's not about what you say, but about the results that you produce that matters. So execution, therefore, you need to really surround yourself with people who are not similar to you. That's another thing. Sometimes we say we like to feel comfortable with people. But if you surround yourself with people who are similar to you, you're not getting the diversity that you need, that every business needs to flourish. And in the absence of that diversity, you are not going to be able to realize the full potential of what you want to do. So surrounding yourself with smarter people, surrounding yourself with people who have the right skills, and more importantly, surrounding yourself with people who have the right attitude. People have to buy into your vision. And every company has its own vision and way of operating. The way Fab India works is very different from the way Good Earth works, from the way, Biba works, but they're all successful. So execution, therefore, you need to really surround yourself with people who are not similar to you. That's another thing. Sometimes we say we like to feel comfortable with people. But if you surround yourself with people who are not similar to you, you're not getting the diversity that you need, that every business needs to flourish. And in the absence of that diversity, you are not going to be able to realize the full potential of what you want to do. So surrounding yourself with people who are similar to you, you're not going to be able to realize the full potential of what you want to do. So execution, therefore, you need to really surround yourself with people who are not similar to you. That's another thing. Sometimes we say we like to feel comfortable with people. So you have to determine what is your DNA that you want in your business. What is going to be that special uniqueness that you bring to what you do that is going to differentiate you from everybody else? Because there'll be many people who come and compete in the same space. And you know, right now we can see what is happening in the e-commerce world. Everybody wants to launch a portal, everybody wants to do everything, and then the only thing you can do is to offer big discounts. You will have a lot of customers and very big discounts, but where is the money? So the last thing I want to say to all of you is that at the end of the day, business is about the ability to make money. Yes, you have to invest. Yes, there will be a gestation period. Yes, there will be times when initially you will not make money. That is why it is called an investment phase. But intrinsically, very quickly, you have to come to a business model where you have defined quite clearly and specifically how the activities are going to be performed, what is going to be the cost of each of those activities, what is the revenue that you're going to generate, and at the end, if you're not generating more revenue than the costs that you have, you're not going to have an enduring business. You may get investors initially who believe in you, who say that you're really competent and I'm going to put my money behind your venture. But at the end of the day, the purpose of business, the purpose of any commercial venture is to create a surplus. Because if you're not creating a surplus, you're not going to be able to pay your employees, pay your shareholders, pay yourself, and make the business sustainable. And you know, it goes from the sublime to the ridiculous. Large businesses have folded up. We all know of an airline called Kingfisher who got into so much of debt. It was a great brand. It was a great experience for customers. But if you are not able to find a way to make money at the end of the day, that business is not going to be sustaining or enduring. And therefore, it is always a good idea, initially, to be very careful with the costs that you're incurring, how you're approaching the business that you are doing, which become very, very critical. So I would say that in summary, at least what I've always done, every time a new opportunity has come my way, I ask myself 3 questions. And if the answer to all 3 questions is yes, I go ahead and do it. So the first question is, am I going to learn anything, in doing this new thing? The second is, am I going to be able to contribute to what I'm doing? Of course, in my case, I'm a professional. I've not been an entrepreneur, as I said. So, my decisions always were, am I going to be able to learn anything out of this new opportunity? Am I going to be able to contribute anything to the business? And third and most important is, am I going to have fun doing it? Because frankly, when you are having fun doing something that you do, it doesn't matter how long you work. If you're not having fun doing what you're doing, even an hour can be very, very tedious. So the important thing is you've got to create around you an environment and an atmosphere which brings out the best, not just in yourself, but also brings out the best in other people that you're going to be working with. Because only then can you have fun, and only then can you, really work hard, but also have a good time and feel quite successful at the end of it all. Because, what gives all of us great pleasure and joy and excitement is to say that I made this happen. Now, whether this is a school that you might want to start, whether this is an NGO that you want to start, whether this is, a new business that you want to start, a new manufacturing unit that you're going to start, what matters in the end is what have you managed to create, not just for yourself, but for the society, for the community around you, and for the people around you. I will leave it to questions. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions which are about, women have to juggle so many different responsibilities, manage the home, manage this, manage that. But you know what? Juggling multiple stakeholders is something that we simply have to accept. Because what choice do you have? And when you don't have a choice and you accept it and you say, I'm going to be smart about the way I'm going to juggle my responsibility and manage the various stakeholders, things actually become quite easy. And you know, all of us also happen to live in a country where there are support systems by way of families, by way of other support systems that are available for all of us to you know, pursue and follow our dream the way you wish to pursue and follow your dream. And just remember that at the end of the day, what matters is how you feel about yourself, not how others feel about you. If you feel good about yourself, others will feel very good about you. If you don't feel good about yourself, you know, it's unlikely that you can get that satisfaction from others. So I would say that it's an exciting journey all of you have chosen. There is a world of opportunities ahead of us. India has never been in the position in which India is now. There are lots of challenges and lots of issues, but there are also lots of opportunities. And you know, if all of us are smart about how we want to use those opportunities to fulfill ourselves, to create something that is going to be enduring, to create something that is going to be lasting and sustainable, then there is, you know, great joy and great happiness in doing that. So thank you very much. I will open it up to questions.
Each of our minds that we would like you to address. Ladies, we will now open the floor to all of you. Please be very, very precise in your questions. My team will address you, help you with the mics. However, before we begin, I think 2 questions have already come to me. So let me quickly ask ma'am one of those. Ma'am, this question comes from a very sweet member of our group, Jyotsna Angara. The core values and organizational culture of any company is considered to be key to its growth and sustenance. Is work culture the one thing that India needs to change? How does one go about changing that entrenched organizational culture that does not support the growth of the company?
How does one support a culture?
How does one go about changing that entrenched organizational culture that does not support the growth of the company?
So I'm assuming from this question, whoever asked is, that there is a company that already exists, which is not supporting the values of growth. Is that?
It is not necessarily supporting the values that it should, that is aligned to its mission. Then how do you go about it?
Well, if it is your company, then you change. If it is not your company, then you try your best to influence that change. And if after trying your best, you can't do it, then you've got to go away and find someplace else that is going to be supportive of your values. You know, one thing is for sure, that those companies that behave, you know, it's a question of, there are people who say what they do and do what they say. The same thing is with companies. You know, companies have to be credible, companies have to be consistent, people are very smart. I can't be a company that says we value our people and then go and fire everybody every other day. Nobody is going to believe what I say. Like somebody said, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear your words. So it is about your actions and your words being consistent with each other. If you are the promoter, the entrepreneur, then you create the values, you set the tone, you set the culture. If on the other hand, let's say you're a professional or you're an employee, and you find that the way senior leadership of the company, usually it's the senior leadership, it's not the juniors, the senior leadership of the company is not behaving in a manner which is consistent with those values. And if you are part of that senior leadership you must have the guts and the courage to call it out. And if, you know, and we must do that, because if we don't, then we become part of them. Very often it takes a lot of courage, but then if you want to change something, it does take a lot of courage. You do your best to influence and change that. It is not out of emotion. It is out of data. It is out of, you know, it's a question of what people are actually doing. It's facts and data and how people are conducting themselves. And if despite that you feel that it's not making a difference to anybody, then you say, okay, I am not going to waste my energy and my time trying to change something where intrinsically people don't want to change. Then you've got to go and find a place that is consistent with your values, consistent with what you want to do. Okay?
In relation with this, it becomes more sticky if it's a family business. How does one sort that out?
I could turn around and say that because it is family business, your ability to be able to change that should actually be higher, not lower. Because if you can't change things which are part of the family, I mean, imagine trying to change things which are outside the family. Now, easier said than done. Any kind of transformational change requires, first of all, clarity on your part. I mean, the first thing you've got to test out is to say, are you the only one who's feeling like that, or there are other people also feeling like that? You've got to be able to have a very good way of assessing, you know, what is going on in the family. I think the second thing is that in any kind of change management, you'll never bring about change by saying, you're doing it this way, I think it's wrong, and this is the way to do it. You know, people will turn around and say, go fly a kite. This is the way we've been doing it, and we've been very, very successful. So I think that emotional maturity, that emotional quotient, how you're going to have a dialogue with some of the elders in the family that will cause them to see things differently is something that you have to think about. Because the one thing that a lot of people say, and the one thing that most people are resistant to, is change. You go and ask anybody, they'll say, yeah, I really think we need to change. Try changing that person. Nobody wants to change because we all love our comfort zone. We will all rationalize why it is important to do things the way we are doing them now and not something else, because it requires great courage to change. So change management, whether it is a family business or a professional business, is a long-term path. It's not going to happen because you're the youngest and you've got an MBA and you'll come and tell your uncles or great uncles or great aunts, what we've been doing is wrong, this is the way to do it. Nobody's going to listen to you. You have to be sensitive. You have to show them another way of doing things. You have to do it with sensitivity. You have to do it sensibly. You have to make yourself credible before somebody starts listening to you. Because, you know, none of us have the divine right to be listened to. People must feel that, yes, you bring an added dimension. People must feel that, yes, you bring a new perspective. People must feel that with your perspective, they can get further than they've been getting with their own perspective. So there is also a strategy on managing change. And it's not going to happen just because you wish it to be. It doesn't happen in professional organizations. Trust me, I can tell you. I had a transformational role in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Chile, in Britannia. It took me 5 to 6 years to make any of that happen.
Very insightful, thank you. Ma'am, coming to my question.
Oh, I thought that was your question.
Read from there. Have there been any times when you actually felt like throwing the towel in? And
When I felt really?
Throwing the towel in, saying this, I've had enough. And if so, how did you rededicate yourself?
I never felt like throwing the towel in.
Wow, that's something.
You know, honestly, I didn't. So can't answer that question. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Being a leader means you have to demand, command, and reprimand. So how do you deal in the third situation where sometimes you have to fire a staff for being incompetent or, warn a person who's not meeting the deadlines? If you're an emotional person, then I think this situation is the most difficult to handle, So I would just like to know what is the solution and how to tackle such a situation. Thank you so much.
I don't think about demand, command, reprimand. That's not... No, I don't. Okay, so I think leadership is about being effective. Okay, and being effective is more than demand, command, and reprimand. Being effective is about being inspirational. Being effective is about motivating people. Being effective is about living the behaviors that you want others to follow. Being effective is about finding which is the best way to get things done. Part of it is, being demanding of people and so on. I'm not denying that. See, that is a function of now, if people don't want to listen to you, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? That is why I'm saying it is about effectiveness more than it is about demanding or commanding. Even teachers in school can't get children to behave the way they want them to behave. So what is important is to say, what does effectiveness mean in a situation like this? And every human being is different. I might take reprimand in my stride, but someone else who's more sensitive may not take reprimand in their style. And then what do? So being a leader is about having empathy. Being a leader is about having the inspiration to set goals where people say, yes, we are going to follow those. Being a leader is about sensitivity. Being a leader is about understanding what motivates each of your people and dealing with them on an individual basis rather than using one size fits all. For some people, you have to reprimand, and that's the only way they'll learn. For some people, you have to really edge them on and, get them to perform to greater heights. But the most important job of a leader is to have empathy. If a leader does not have empathy, then it's very hard to get people to do work. Try getting your maid who comes to cook, to do work by demanding, commanding, and reprimanding. She'll leave your job and go and find another job. So it is not about that. Now, I'm not saying you have to be at the receiving end of anything. I think as a leader, you have to make expectations very clear. Leaders have to communicate clearly and precisely. Leaders have to set goals which are unambiguous. Leaders have to show the rest of the people in the organization a path on how to get there from here. Leaders have to demand excellence. Leaders have to support. Leaders have to inspire. So leadership is a big responsibility, of which the three things that you mentioned are small pieces of that big task of leadership. You can get a lot more out of people when you inspire them. So people work out of inspiration or people work out of fear. You don't want to be a leader who is feared and therefore people look up to you. You want to be a leader where people truly look up to you because you do something good for them. That is when they will give their best to you. Out of fear, people don't give their best. Out of inspiration, people give their best.
Ms. Bali, I had a question. I was just wondering, with your experience internationally, nowadays we have a lot more number of women leaders that we're seeing in our country. Is there any difference, do you feel, with women leaders in our country compared to our global counterparts? You already said that as Indian women leaders, we do have some advantages with the extended family support system, maybe even help. But besides that, are there any advantages, disadvantages? Do you feel that is there anything that from an international perspective that we can actually take lessons from or that others can learn from us?
There aren't differences, but obviously there are differences in culture. So for example, European and American men share a lot of the household work that Indian men don't. But in India, we have mother-in-laws and servants doing our work, which they don't there. So, barring those kinds of things, I don't think obviously cultures are different. But if you're sensitive to a culture, the motivations of people are the same, whether you're in Scandinavia or you're in India. People get inspired, people get motivated, people have great attitudes or not great attitudes. So all of those things are human conditions. They are not India versus something else. And I think understanding that human condition about, why people do what they do is very, very important, irrespective of the culture that you're in. I mean, even in India, what is acceptable in the north may or may not be acceptable in the east or the south and so on. So I think having that sensitivity and having that empathy is very important. And then you've got to use the best in your cultural support system to work to your advantage. I used to joke at one time where we said that, behind every successful man is a woman, and I used to say, and behind every successful woman is a maidservant. And that is very true, because, what they do for us is they liberate us from doing a lot of the tasks that women in other cultures have to do because, they don't have that thing available. So my point is, we have to manage the ecosystem that we have in a manner which is smart and in a manner where we are not putting ourselves out too much. I think one of the things that Indian women don't do enough of is that we are not as demanding as we ought to be of other people, chipping in and sharing the roles and fulfilling their responsibilities. Indian women somehow feel that they are the ones, they are the pivot around which everything has to be balanced. And that's not necessarily so. Indian women feel that they have to be at home when their kids come back from work. There are many working women I know, whose kids grew up from the age of 6 months knowing that mother travels and father travels, and sometimes mom's not going to be at home and sometimes dad's not going to be at home. And those kids grow up just fine. We feel that we have to be around our kids. They don't necessarily want us around them, not all the time. So I think, and there is no one size fits all. You have to determine in your situation what works, but you also have to be demanding. You can't say that I'm going to do with 4 hours of sleep, but I'm going to be the perfect mom, the perfect entrepreneur, the perfect daughter-in-law, the perfect wife, the perfect hostess, and so on. It's impossible.
Good evening. So my question is related to the last part of your question. There's this perception that a woman's emotional quotient impacts her career and her leadership. There's also this perception that, there's always a clash for women.
Always?
There's always a clash.
Between
life, family, career, and everything for a woman. What are your thoughts on that?
My question is whose perception it is. If it is not your perception, then forget about it. Why are you worrying about everybody else's perception? What is your perception? If you don't feel there's a clash, how does anybody else's perception matter?
They also say that an extreme work
You're
pressure.
saying they. Who's they?
People, or in books it's written, or they
Okay.
say that
What do they say?
extreme work pressure wears a woman down more so than a man.
I don't think so. These are huge generalizations. I can show you men who cannot take work pressure, and I can show you women who can take a lot of work pressure. So I think we tend to have these overly simplistic generalizations which have to do with gender, and frankly, a lot of these things don't have to do with gender. I can show you very, very sensitive men, and I can show you very insensitive women. So does it, I mean, all of us have to have, you know, a certain quotient of intelligence, a certain quotient of empathy, otherwise we'd be robots. You know, so emotion, rationalism, all of that is part of our individual makeup. And there are some things that some people are more sensitive to than others, but that's okay. All of us are not the same. You know, I might see somebody begging on the road and feel nothing, and somebody else might see somebody begging on the road and feel something. But if both of us end up not doing anything about it, how does it matter?
So the results.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My questions are in context to what you already spoke, and I just wanted a bit of closure because nobody else asked that question.
Sure, sure.
One is regarding where you don't need to achieve success in everything you do continually. In that context, I'd like to know of any case or any instance in your work where you didn't achieve the desired success, and what you would have done differently. That is one, the first question. And the second one is regarding your inspiration, Gandhiji, as to what are the principles or lessons you learned from Gandhi which you apply to your leadership life?
So disappointment, several. You know, when you've had a long 30+ year in operations, there are many new products we launched which did not succeed. But I take that in my stride. It's like the analogy that I used earlier, that, you know, if I'm Federer, I don't always end up winning the Wimbledon or anything else. So I think when you are in a profession, whether you're a sports person, a musician, a dancer, a corporate person, a doctor, anybody, you have to take success and failure in your stride. Now, failure sounds too big, but, you know, nothing is really a failure. I mean, what is a failure? A failure is something which didn't work the way you expected it to work. It's not the end of the world. So, you know, who was it who said, I think Churchill is what it said, the ability to stand up and run even faster every time you've fallen is what contributes success. The problem with failure is that if you take it too much to heart and say, oh my God, you know, I'm never going to try this again, you will never succeed. So failure is good if it urges you to do things differently, if it urges you to become even more resolved and more determined in what you want to do. Sometimes things fail because you haven't done them well, and you must have the ability to debrief failure just as you debrief success and say, what could I have done differently? So I think learning from failure and success is actually more important than the failure or the success. So what do sports people do? They video their games and they say, okay, you know, out of all the serves I made, you know, errors in so many serves and I did well in so many other serves. So how do I improve my serve? That is what practice is all about. What do great dancers do? Whether they are Indian classical dancers or ballet dancers, they tape themselves. Then they look at that video and they say, okay, I made a mistake here. If I do this differently, it will improve. So practice, discipline, rehearsal is very important, whether you are a sports person, a dancer, a corporate person, or anybody else. So that's one thing. Your second question was about, you know, what lessons have I learned from? You know, it's not that I've sat down and studied, you know, Gandhiji or whatever. But I do get inspired by his determination, his clarity of thought, his ability to take big ideas and put them across in very compelling ways. These were not slogans, these were calls to action. The sincerity of purpose, his resoluteness, his simplicity more than anything else. And for someone who followed his moral core, his principles, and nothing would come in the way of sacrificing those principles. I think those are things that I admire about him. Yeah.
Ma'am, people often say have no expectations from others. In your journey, did you ever expect anything from anybody, either professionally or personally?
No, of course you expect. You expect the people you work with to do their work. You expect people to be responsible for what they do. So having no expectations is not that, okay, I'm going to go to work, and if nobody shows up for work, that's fine. That is not having no expectations. Of course you have to have expectations.
Maybe you feel a particular person need to work in a particular way, or maybe some outcome you expect from a particular person, and it doesn't happen. It usually, from everybody, we expect something.
We must expect something. I mean, if you've got, from your head of HR, you must expect that that person is going to find you the best people and so on and so forth. So no expectations is not a good thing. We have to have expectations. I'm not sure where you got the no expectations. I'm not sure I said have no expectations.
No, you never said that.
Yeah. So I have a lot of expectations. I have a lot of expectations for people who work with me, for people who work for me, because without expectations, how are people going to, I think what you're referring to is more of, the emotional side of expectations. Yeah. Now, we are not in some, I don't know, I want to choose my, I don't want to be incorrect, but we are not in some spiritual class where we are talking about abandoning this work and finding our nirvana without expectations. We are all creatures of this world. Of course, this world cannot work without expectations. We expect the plane to leave on time, we expect the bus to come on time, we expect the streets to be clean. We must have expectations, because if we don't have expectations, how do we achieve anything? So I'm a great one for, expectations, my own and other people's.
And how do you ensure that your expectations are met every time?
You cannot ensure, you only can create the environment. And who says that your expectations are the best expectations? In a work environment, I think the expectations are shared. We all come to work to deliver a certain result. And those expectations that we will sell so much, we will spend so much money, whatever it is, those are the business results that you want to impact. And those expectations have to be made very clear. Because if people are not clear about what they are expected to contribute, it is impossible for them to contribute. Then your expectations will never be met. So expectations have to be spelled out very clearly, very simply. I must know what my responsibility is in the work that I'm doing. And your understanding of my responsibility and my understanding of my responsibility has to be the same. Very often in organizations, things don't happen the way you expect them to happen, because I'm expecting something which I've never shared with you. You're expecting something which you've never shared with me, and therefore both of us can never be happy about anything. So as a leader, you have to be very clear in terms of expectations. No, the onus is on everybody. See, this is another thing. Onus is not only on you. Onus is on everybody who's coming to work. Onus is on everybody who has a responsibility. At the end of the day, as a leader, you have the overall responsibility, for your people, for your business, for your whatever, because you are making the tough calls. But there is an expectation of a certain work ethic. There is an expectation that if work starts at 9 o'clock, everybody will be there at 9 o'clock. There is a certain expectation all of you had saying that this event will start at 3:20 and it had to start at 3:20. I'm sure all of you had a certain expectation on what I would say. Some of you will be happy, some of you might go away unhappy saying it wasn't what I thought it would be. So we all have expectations and you must have expectations.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think I can safely now ask the last question being about you yourself personally. How do you see yourself in the future? What next is it for yourself? Have you planned something up? Is there something, like you moving on, growing in industry, moving on to bigger issues? What else can we see about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people who sort of creates my own transformation plan every few years. For a long time it was, moving to different countries, taking up different roles. One of the reasons I decided to step out of a full-time corporate job was it wasn't allowing me to do all the other things that I wanted to do. And, so I had a plan for myself, which is what I'm doing now. So I don't have one full-time job, but as I say, I have full-time many things that I'm doing, which is what I've always wanted to do. So I'm actually spending my time partly between the corporate world and partly the development sector. So in the corporate world, through being on boards of global companies. So I sit on the board of a company in Switzerland, on a FTSE 100 board in London. I'm also I've got a 2-year assignment with the United Nations on the Scaling Up Nutrition Initiative. I've just taken over as the chairperson of GAIN, which is a Swiss foundation called the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. I'm on the board of IIM Bangalore and so on and so forth. So I'm really spending my time between the corporate world through independent directorships, some advisories, as well as the development sector, largely in the area of nutrition. And also spend my time doing what I'm doing now, which is really, talking either to students or to companies or whatever, sharing and learning. Every time I come and talk, I learn something new, which is why it's about, so it's not just about my coming and talking to you. I learn from your questions, I learn from these interactions, and, that is the way I keep myself sort of current in many different spheres and many different activities.
One question that I would definitely like to ask, especially since you spoke about being on the board. There's a lot of noise today in the country that there must be women on the board. FICCI Ladies organization itself is working on that too, trying to get people ready on the board. Is there something that, as a country, we are doing something but not doing right, or we need to do more to get women board ready? And the other aspect is most women, including me sitting in this audience here, belong to either small, medium, or large enterprise family businesses. Mostly it is family businesses. Irrespective of academic qualifications and experience, how would you sort of guide us to get our member fraternity to be board ready, or at least in that direction?
So a couple of things. One is it's now been made, it's mandatory for companies of a certain size, as per the company's bill of 2013, to have at least one woman board member. And I personally think it's a good thing. And the reason for that is that, women make up 50% of our population. And, sooner or later, I think people have realized that not having women participate on boards is actually keeping away a lot of very, very good talent from the corporate world. So it's a good thing. How it is implemented is very important. If it is just tokenism that I'm just going to put, someone who's not, so it is not. Now, it's not just with women. It just happens to come into sharper focus when it is women. So, when I put my son on the board, nobody questions that I put my son on the board. But when I put my daughter on the board or my wife on the board, everybody thinks there's something funny. We simply have to ignore those things. I think it's not worth arguing. What women have to do is really to make sure that, when you get onto a board, you are competent. It's like nobody's going to give you a job if you're incompetent. Being on the board comes with a lot of responsibility. You need to understand what it means to be on the board because you are personally liable for a lot of things that may go wrong in the company. So, how to get women ready for board positions? I think there are lots of initiatives that organizations like Spencer Stuart, other people are doing. I think it is a good thing. A lot of companies have not met their requirement of getting women on boards. Over the next 2 or 3 years, we'll see a lot more demand for women. And I think women like you should jump on the bandwagon and give your names to some of the recruiting companies and headhunting companies and say, we are available to be on the board. And I think it'll take a few years for it to, like anything which is new takes time. I think it'll take a few years for that to get into it, but I think it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Okay, thank you very much.
Ma'am, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your practical tips to grow our organizations and businesses. Now I request our chairperson, Samia Alam Khan, to kindly hand over the memento to Ms.Vinita Bali. Gitika Chadha, our program convener, kindly give it to Samia, please. I now invite our YFLO Senior Vice Chairperson, Ms. Nidhi Swarup, to please give the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Great leaders don't set out to be a leader. They set out to make a difference. It's never about the role, it's always about the goal. This quote summarizes the essence, I think, of today's talk by our dynamic speaker. Ms. Bali, YFLO is honored and humbled to have you here today sharing your wisdom on the role of women and the importance and essence of women in the corporate world. Thank you so much for being here and guiding us through this. I would like to offer our special thanks to the governing body members, past chairs of FLO and YFLO, present committee members of FLO and YFLO for gracing this event. At this point, I would like to just mention that we are very grateful. Ms. Kavita Reddy has agreed and taken up the task of being the social media head for YFLO. So we look forward to hearing a lot from you. Thank you so much, Park Hayat and media, for helping us out, for giving us such a nice venue and being such good hosts to the hotel. And also the members, without you, no event can be successful. Thank you all so much. Last but not the least, I would like to I'd like to thank Ms. Chitra Badruka. She was really generous and helped us by sponsoring the cupcakes by Delicioso Exotic Baking. Thank you all. I'd like to invite you all for the high tea, and I call the YFLO and FLO chairpersons and the past members for photos, please.